And the vocabulary is amazing. And I just wanted to read to you how this book starts. She rides out of the forest alone, 17 years old in the cold March drizzle. Marie, who comes from France. She's a bastard sibling of the crown. She's orphaned. She has no glittering jewel to set in a clean gilded court. 3 heads too tall, great clumsy lungs with a giant bony body. So she is sent away by Eleanor of Aquitaine. She is this bastard child who is a threat to the crown, so she sends her away to a nunnery. And so she has to go off on this 3-day journey by herself on the horse. She gets to this nunnery. It's dilapidated. There's no food. It's muddy. It's horrible. Nobody's nice to her. It's just heartbreaking. And little by little, she starts kind of coming into her own. And she starts doing a little work on the nunnery. She says, why, what's that over there? Why can't you plant a garden over there? And it's just such a compelling book. I couldn't put it down. I was working in the yard and I had earbuds in it. And she just is this warrior woman. And it's a really compelling book, I think, for any warrior woman that you know. It makes a great gift. And it just makes you feel good. It's such a great writer. And then some of you, my next book might know Catherine Grace, who lives here in Lake Forest and has done numerous programs for us here at the library. And this is her most recent book. I was able to go to the bookstore and listen to her tell a little bit about it. And right before COVID, she had a couple of days, and she got in a quick trip to England, and she spent her whole time there in the British Library, going through actual war correspondence. And she said they didn't make her wear gloves or anything. She was reading letters from Churchill, and just an amazing experience. And then she took that and put it into this book, and it's this story that a modern woman who is contacted by a journalist who starts talking to her about her relatives in the past, and she says, what are you talking about? That aunt died from polio at a very young age. Well, no, she didn't. She was involved in something during World War II, and they just said that she died from polio at a very young age. But actually, what happened, there were 2 twin sisters, and one was involved in France, possibly involved with some of Hitler's people. The other sister was in England. She talks a lot about fashion, story of family, and this family secret that's gone on for generations, and now this young woman is going to find out what really happened. And she's such a good writer. It's like, for me, I'm going to give this to my sister, and I'm going to give it to my sister-in-law and my mother-in-law. Some of her work, when you look Catherine Marie up, they consider it Christian fiction because it's not super violent. There aren't any big sex scenes in it, but it's not boring. It's just not racy.
But it's historical fiction.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, and then one of my picks is Malibu Rising by Reed. It's about like movie star or musician in the 70s, has a family, and everything seems great in the world, but then fame kind of gets to his head, and he decides that whoever he wants, or just travel the world, leave his family. So he abandons his family, his wife and 3 kids. They're kind of forced to fend for themselves. They go hungry often. But the way that she describes their story, it starts like when they're young kids and goes until they're adults. And it's basically like this up to this big annual party that they have at the sister's house. So just all of like the emotional and mental things that they go through, like accepting that their father, this famous singer that everyone loves, but they know kind of wasn't a very good father to them. So you'll be rooting for all of the Rita kids by the end of the book. This one is a collection of short stories, which it's not like I don't read a lot of short stories. But this one, it's set in China, so you get a lot of like diverse stories because there are some people who live in China. Some of them have like a little bit of humor in them, and others are pretty serious. But they're heartfelt, and it's a quick read. But it doesn't mean that the stories won't stay with you long after you finish the book.
My next book is Songs in Ursa Major. And actually, this book is a little bit reminds me of Malibu Rising, and also by the same author who wrote Malibu Rising, Daisy Jones and the Six. I'm not going to give you that. Or if you've seen, you can watch this on Canopy. It's on Canopy for free through the library. If you've seen the film that Bill and Son did, Echo in the Canyon, which is just this great montage of Stephen Stills and Joni Mitchell and all the people who lived in Laurel Canyon back in the 60s. So this book reminds me a lot of that. It's 1969. It starts out at a concert. Everyone's all hyped up to see Jesse Reed, this hot star, and he doesn't show up. So the crowd is getting restless. They're chanting Jesse Reed, Jesse Reed. So the organizers of the festival run over to the amateur stage, and they grab this band to come over, and they get up on the stage, and people are booing them, and this young woman, Jane Quinn, walks out, and she starts to sing. And of course, she's fabulous, and everybody loves her, including Jesse Reed. And so they start traveling together, so they become the warm-up band for this famous act, and so it's just the story of these two bands. There's scenes where they're on the bus with the band, they're playing different venues, and then the relationship that she has with Jesse Reed, and all the ups and downs that they have. So it's sort of a love story. It's also like a sex, drugs, and rock and roll story. I think I read it all in one night. I really liked it. It was very compelling story. And then I'm sure many of you are familiar with Colson Whitehead. He has won two, I think he's the only one to win 2 consecutive Pulitzer Prizes for The Nickel Boys and The Underground Railroad. So this got great reviews, and I really hadn't gotten around to reading it. And in the car, and Terry Gross was interviewing him on NPR. I highly recommend listening to that interview. It's just charming and makes you want to read the book. So basically, he was looking for a movie to watch, and he likes to watch like the heist movies. And he thought the 2 books he had just written, had taken so much out of him. He thought, well, maybe I'd like to write the book that I'd like to read, and I like to read about heists. So he sets this in Harlem in the 60s, and it's the story of a fence. So this guy runs a furniture store, but it's not enough to support his family. So he gets involved with these guys who are going to rob jewels from this famous hotel. And you like him, but he's also a fence. So yeah, there's a little dichotomy there. But it's funny and it's poignant, and he's such a great writer. Really can't go wrong with this book. I did not listen to the audio, but I'm guessing it would be also really good.
And the next one I have is Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Sweeney. I believe she wrote His and Hers, Sometimes I Lie. But this was my first read by this author, and it was fantastic. Thrillers sometimes to me are like potato chips, because you get through them super fast, but they're not very memorable. This one stuck with me though. The ending completely threw me off. It's kind of like a locked mystery. This husband and wife in an attempt to save the marriage go away for a weekend, but things aren't as they seem, and there's a creepy person walking around the premises, their hotels. So it's very good.
I'm halfway through it, and then I stopped because I wanted to read the rest on one chunk and not be interrupted.
And I needed the book for this discussion. The next one is Silent Woods. I couldn't get the book for that. This one, it's labeled thriller, but it's definitely more of like a slow burn mystery. It's more atmospheric. It's about this father and daughter who live in the woods, who have been living in the woods for about 8 years, and they can't go back into civilization. They fend for themselves and rely on this person to visit them once a year with supplies. And the only explanation he gives his daughter when she asks him is that he's done things in the past where like society won't accept him back in. So it's kind of like leading up to like what he did to make them self-exile. But the ending was fantastic on this one as well. But it's definitely slower. It's not a very fast-paced thriller. So then the other thriller I have is The Maidens by Alex Michaelides or Michaelides or something. He also wrote The Silent Patient. So this one's kind of familiar, kind of similar. He does like the element of Greek mythology. It's set on, I believe, it's Cambridge University. So it's just about this therapist who believes that one of the professors is a murderer of this young girl. So she goes on her own like self-investigation to figure out if that's true or not, or if she's kind of crazy. So this one was very good too.
So my next book is The Talented Miss Barwell, which actually is a play on the title The Talented Mr. Ripley. So I again heard an interview with this author, and she said she was driving from Chicago. She was driving down Lakeshore Drive, and on the news she was hearing a report about the woman, that comptroller from Dixon, Illinois, who embezzled all their money. Right. And so that was a big read on somebody. There's also a great movie made about that, which was really fun to watch. So she thought, well, that would be a fun topic to write a book about. So in the reviews of this, they say that it's Catch Me If You Can meets Patricia Highsmith, and it takes place in the 90s, and this young woman lives in this really small town, and her father does the books for the community, and then he passes away, and she takes over, and she's just keeping the books, but then she also has this other life where she is this fashionista who travels all over the world buying fabulous art, and she's drinking wonderful champagne and hanging out in these cool hotels, and going to Sotheby's and all these art auctions. But where is she getting the money to do all this? So that's the story, and you like her, even though she's stealing from the community, and then you're nervous all the time that she's going to get caught. And then you also love hearing about what she's wearing and what she's going. It's not a really long book, but it's really compelling, and she's very likable. Last Girl Ghosted is by Lisa Unger, who is one of my favorite thriller writers. She wrote this book called Under My Skin, but I still remember that I was on vacation like 7 in the morning. I read the whole thing. So this is about a young woman who she doesn't date much, and her friends convince her to go on a dating app like Tinder or something. And so she meets this guy, and it's like electricity. That's what you've ever seen. He talks her poetry language, he talks about history and philosophy, and they are pretty much inseparable. They're together all the time. And then he doesn't show up one night. And she's texting him, and she's calling him, and she's thinking something horrible happened to him. He's hurt, and all her friends are like, no, he's just done with you. Like, he's on to the next one. And she doesn't believe that, so she keeps digging and digging. Well, then she finds out that there have been some other women who have answered ads and fallen in love and then disappeared. And then she starts getting some weird texts. So her friends are all really worried about her. And you would be too. You should be. And then my last thriller is by Nietzsche French. And I don't know if you've read any of her. She has some standalones, but she also has this really, so it's a husband and wife. Not a she, but it's a author. The author's a husband and wife. She has a series that starts with this Blue Monday, and they're really good. And there's each book in the series has the day of the week in it, but what makes them really fun is they have the same characters, but in the first book, the psychologist, is the main character. Then in the next book, one of the other people is the main character, and the one in this is the side character. But you still have all the same people in the books, but you're hearing their different stories. And this book, The Unheard, is about a mom named Tess, and she never married the father of her child, but they share custody. So it opens up, it's all lovely. He's dropping the little girl off at 3, dropping her off, having coffee, hot chocolate together. He goes home to his new wife. He goes home to their apartment. Their little girl wants to show her what she drew at school today. And she just drew this horrific, horrible picture of this woman falling out of a building and landing on the ground and dying. So where did that come from? And then the little girl starts putting to bed, and she's only 3, so she can't really explain what happened. Now she's acting up at school, so she keeps asking her ex-partner, did something happen this weekend? Did she witness something? What the heck is going on? And then as she delves into it more, people start saying, you're just too overprotective. Like, what is wrong with you? Why are you thinking out over this? There's nothing wrong. She saw it on TV or whatever. But she didn't.
Is that part of the series, or is it just
No, it's standalone. And she has a couple of standalones. And if you go over to in the library, if you go over to the shelf where these are, just coincidentally, there's this other author with the same last name, different first name. And these are also really good thrillers. And I found out about these because I was reading these, and then I was like, oh, what's that? And there's a whole series, and they're really good too.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, if you like those, she's really good, or she and he are really good.
And then the last 2 thrillers I have, one is The Sanatorium by Sarah Pierce. She's a debut author, so this is her first book. I thought she did a phenomenal job writing it. It wasn't choppy at all. It was very smooth writing. And it's another kind of locked-in mystery. This detective and her boyfriend go on vacation because she needs time off from work. She's getting really too invested into the cases that she was part of. So the police department kind of sent her on vacation. So they're trying to relax at this 5-star hotel that was formerly a sanatorium in the Alps. But things start to get a little weird. This one person that was also staying there, she disappears, and the detective was the last person to see her. It believes that this person exists. So she has to try to figure that out, but and convince everyone this is a new person. And then the last one is The Lamplighters. This one is based on a true story about 3 lighthouse keepers that disappeared. I believe it was near Scotland in the late 1800s. But the interior of the lighthouse was locked, and the logbook showed that there was a storm the night before. But residents can attest that there was sunny skies. Nothing strange happened. They can't find any of the lighthouse keepers. And there's the 3 women that they leave behind: wife, mothers, girlfriends. They have to deal with this disappearance 20 years later. And it's kind of set like a person interviewing these women, trying to just figure out what's going on. And it's still a cold case. They don't know what happened to these lighthouse keepers.
To some nonfiction books. So my first book, Chasing the Mountains. I don't know if any of you are able to attend our Lake Forest Retreat this fall, where we had Jamie Ford come and a hotel on the corner of Bitter State, which is just a wonderful book. And it's about Japanese Americans who were put in an internment camp. And it's a love story. It's a beautiful book. Well, this book, Chasing the Mountains, it's by the same author that wrote The Boys in the Boat. And it's about Japanese Americans who were put in internment camps, and also some who joined the army before they went into camp. And then also the story of one man who refused to go, and what happened with him and his trial. So this regiment actually was the most awarded regiment of any Americans who went to World War II. They did some amazing rescues, and there was one assignment they were sent on where nobody else had been able to break through these enemy lines, and they were told that they had to do it and go up this sheer cliff, and probably some of them would fall, but they weren't allowed to scream. Like, those were their actual directions, orders were, if you fall off, you're going to die, but you can't scream because then they'll let everybody know that you're there. Okay. So each of these four of these soldiers, and they kind of tell their whole story. And I don't, as I said, here the voice of the book personalizes it all. So, like, I bought this for my brother for his birthday because he's in history, and this is a part of history that a lot of people don't know about. And it's the story of, they were American citizens, they were treated as such. After Pearl Harbor, of course, they were treated like they were the enemy, and yet they went and they fought for our country. And it wasn't till, I don't know, maybe the 80s that they were invited to the White House and acknowledged for what they had done. It looks thick, but there are notes in the back, and it's just a great part of history that a lot of people don't know about. This is a really big book, but this is by Walter Isaacson, and he wrote the very big book about Leonardo da Vinci, and he wrote the Steve Jobs book. So that same great writing skill that he can take anything and make it very compelling. I'm not a super sciencey person, but I did find this interesting. It's about a woman named Jennifer Doudna. She won the Nobel Prize in 2020 for what she discovered about DNA. So when she was a little girl, her dad gave her a book about double helix, and she just thought that was the most interesting thing ever. And then when she was in high school, her science teacher, her counselor said that women can't be scientists. So of course that made her super mad, and she was like, "I'll show you." So she was driven by this passion, and basically she developed this, what they call CRISPR, C-R-I-S-P-R, and it's a way of, what they do is inside a bit of DNA inside a cell, and then they can actually pinpoint a piece of DNA, and then potentially change it, so like for cancer or for genetic diseases. So then part of this book is the whole morality of that, and just what goes into being a scientist and how hard, especially it is for women. So just like The Matrix, I think this is a great book if you have a young woman in your life who maybe has an interest in science, or just doing something that people tell them they can't do, because she proves them wrong. And this is just a great little book called The Optimist, which I think if you're a fisherman, you have to be. So this is a book about fly fishing, The Optimist, a case through the fly fishing life. And what I think is especially fun about this book is parts of it are in Wisconsin. And so he's a super famous writer, for anything to do with fishing and clothing. And so he is a New York Times writer. He writes for the Men's Style. He also writes a column on fishing, fly fishing for the Rock Report. And he writes about tailoring, about drinking and travel. He writes for the Bloomberg and Condé Nast and Wall Street Journal. And he fishes most regularly in the Catskills, in Montana, and Wisconsin. And in Wisconsin, he likes to come and fish for smallmouth bass. And I just thought I could read you just a little paragraph here. He was intrigued by David's fancy gas boat, so carefully designed and built it could move in only 6 inches of water, which he considered decadent, but a basic drawing boat would do just fine. Carter called him David. He was one of the two to do so, and I interpreted that as scientific closeness. Carter said, David doesn't change, he'll never change. I couldn't tell if he meant Dave's personality or his fishing, not that Carter or Dave could ever make a distinction between the two. But no distinction between their fishing and their personality. And my husband is fly fisherman, so I'm going to get into this one.
This next one, called We Thought We Knew You by Emily Phelps, is great for the true crime armchair detective in your life. It talks about the life of Mary and Billy, who are, just this husband and wife who own their own chiropractic company in a small town. They're loved by everyone. Their practice is thriving. But one day, Mary doesn't feel well, and she gets rushed to the ER and dies within hours. They thought it was a bad case of food poisoning, but slowly they start to realize that the son was angry at them. His girlfriend had a little bit of, she was taking money from their business because she worked for them. And so just trying to figure out who would do this to someone such as Mary who loved. And William Phelps also has a podcast called Ghost. It's on Spotify and iHeartRadio. It's very good. I think it's 10 episodes. But he's an investigative journalist, so he goes through and gets back some details that the police maybe overlooked or weren't willing to release to the public. And so he'll talk about these cases that were essentially went cold because no one else was interested in them. So he does a very good job investigating this true crime. The next one is A Couple Found Slain. This happened in 1992. This young man named Brian, who everyone thought was very normal, he just suddenly snapped and he killed both of his parents pretty brutally. And then he fled to Florida, and they didn't find the parents' bodies for a week or whatever until neighbors noticed the smell. So he eventually turned himself in because he realized it was weird. So, and they transferred him to the Clifton T. Perkins Hospital Center in Maryland, which is still there. So this book kind of talks about his life and him trying to fight for basic human rights, such as being able to sit down and eat for more than 5 minutes. And it also goes into the ethics of mental health facilities and the types of people that are treated there, those who get released and those who don't. And Brian is still fighting for his case today. They haven't released him. They keep giving him different diagnoses and different medications, so he can't properly think for himself. He doesn't have a deadline to get released from there. And then the other one is Gastro Obscura, which is a good kind of coffee table book. It's very colorful, has a lot of information about just food from all over the world, from the pecan pie vending machine in Texas to fish head pie, which is a tradition in England, I guess. Yeah. So it goes through it's very colorful, it has a ton of information in it, and it's just super fun to like look through.
So this book is called Eat, Run, Enjoy. The runner, the walkers in your life, or anyone with a lot of exercise. It has great pictures in it, but it's by Billy White, and he took up running when he was in his 30s. He was 30 to gain weight, and he's a Michelin award-winning chef. And he just decided that, of course, nutrition is so important when you're running and doing a lot of exercise, but that doesn't mean that the food has to be boring. So he put together this cookbook, and what's fun is in different chapters he meets with other super athletes. Like this is a woman who's an ultra marathon runner, and they cook together and have little stories about her. Some of the recipes that I thought sounded really good were goat cheese, roasted squash, and sage on toast. And then he has also goat cheese, roast tomatoes, and mint on toast, which I never would have thought of to put the mint on there, but I'm sure it's delicious. Roasted carrot, sweet potato, and coconut soup. And then again, he's just hanging out with this guys in Colorado who's the #1 trail runner in the world, and just chatting with them and getting together and cooking, and it's just really not just a your average cookbook. There's a little more to it. Then I have some cocktail books because why not? So this book, Wild Crafted Cocktails, is the book that I have written down. She also wrote this book called Backyard Foraging. So it's literally like the wild garlic, the wild ginger that you have in your yard, or the juniper berries on the juniper bush. She is a writer and photographer. She lectures all over the world. She contributes to Edible Magazine, and she teaches foraging mixology all over the world. And she has a company called the Botanist Gin. She's a Harvard graduate, multiple certificates in horticulture, and she's also a former Broadway performer. So yeah. So this is called the Wild Crafted Cocktail, and some of the recipes in here, I don't know, they're a little out there, but they might, in my mind, I was thinking if you had a cabin up north or something, hop on to get this book and see what's out there. But then she also has things that aren't so hard, like grinding up the pink peppercorns. Like I have somebody brought me from Hawaii or something. I haven't really used them. Well, she talks about how you grind those up and then you use the salt and pepper on the rim of your glass, and it looks beautiful and it gives a little kick to your drink. She talks about making all different kinds of simple syrup. So I know I've made just plain ones or mints with simple syrup. But she talks about using juniper berries, and then you can enhance your gin with that. This is in this recipe. She actually put I put lemon in ice cubes and mint in ice cubes. She puts lavender in ice cubes, and then has this gin cocktail with these lavender ice cubes. It's a really fun book just to peruse, but also it would be fun. And then the library does have all sorts of other fun cocktail books you can check out. So you can check them out over the holidays, and we have people over. So something different to do. And what's in my too?
Yep, and then this book just came out. It's on animals. I believe she wrote the orchid book.
Yeah, in the library book.
Yeah, so she's a pretty famous author. These stories talk about animals from our household pets to the ones that we raise to meat, to just the wild animals that we may never encounter. So it's fun and also moving. Like you definitely get into the book as you read it. She does, she's a very good researcher and historian, celebrates the meaningful cross species that are part of our everyday life. And then moving on to biography and memoir, and kind of keeping with the food theme, I guess, is Finding Freedom by Erin French. She also wrote the Lost Kitchen cookbook. Her kitchen is based in Maine. And she's a self-taught cook who has made, world news for just the dishes that she comes up with. So she had abusive parents as a kid, and she wound up having a child by herself, married a manipulative husband, and then getting kicked out of rehab because she drank drugs and alcohol. But then she eventually turned her life around and opened a restaurant. So it's about like her story of like almost redemption, coming back from this life of just drug abuse to opening something now where the wait list for this to dine at her restaurant is 2 years. So it's a very good book. And then the other one is Miseducated by Brandon Fleming. He is currently the main coach on the Harvard debate team, but he had a very rough beginning. His mother was a single mother who would get together with various men that she knew. He grew up in a ghetto with drugs and alcohol were basically given to like children his age. He worked at a factory. He tried to commit suicide a couple of times just because he didn't know what to do with his life. He got kicked out of school multiple times, but he had some very good coaches and mentors who helped him turn his life around. And he realized that these other kids in his neighborhood, they had potential like him. So he wanted to encourage them to use their words for something good instead of abusive. And he, with very little schooling, he was able to build this debate team that went against Harvard before he was asked to be their coach and beat Harvard. So it's just his story of, kind of like a phoenix story of rising from the ashes. It's very good.
One memoir here, and this is a brand new book about Audrey Hepburn called Warrior, and it's really about her, the aspect of her life working for UNICEF. And UNICEF stands for United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund, and it was started in 1946. And Audrey Hepburn grew up in Holland, and she was there during World War II when they were invaded by Germany, and she was starving and had no clothes. Her family was in dire need, as so many other citizens were, and she remembers UNICEF coming in and saving them and bringing blankets and bringing food, so it always had a place in her heart. And UNICEF kind of was under the radar, and then Danny Kaye kind of took it upon himself to be the spokesperson for UNICEF for like 35 years or something. And then when he left, they were looking for somebody who they thought would just be a great representative of UNICEF. And they talked with Audrey Hepburn, and she was at a point in her life where, as an actress, she was feeling like she was being put to the side. She wasn't getting roles anymore, and she just really wanted to do something more with her life. She was very close with her sons, but they were grown now, getting married. So this is a book about that time period in her life, and the author has written other books about her. And in this book, the author actually co-wrote it with one of her sons, and it has some just great photos in it, personal photos from their family photo albums, but it also is just a great story about a woman who almost died as a child and then led this glamorous life, and also just contributed so much to help other people. So that's called Warrior. And then this book is humorous. It's called Truffle Hunter, and there's a new movie out called The Truffle Hunter, kind of an independent film. I've seen trailers for it. It looks really funny. And the library has been showing movies on Friday afternoons. And on the 10th, in this room, we're showing their movie, The Truffle Hunter. But we also have the DVD if you ever want to check that out. So this book is by an award-winning author who has written lots of other books about food. He wrote a book called Geography of Oysters, Fruitless Fall, Apples of Uncommon Character. He's written for Harper's, Outside, Mother Jones, Smithsonian, Food and Wine. He's won James Beard Awards for his writing. He wrote a magazine called Heart of Dark Chocolate. It was named the best adventure story of the year by Travel Writers, and he wrote a book for Harper's that was named best magazine piece of the year. So he's a really compelling writer. And this is just a really fun story about truffles. Why are they so expensive? How do they find them? Why do they look like they look? How are they farmed? How are they found? Just the whole story of it. I remember, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago where it was all the rage to get the truffle oil. And it was so expensive. And then was it really truffle oil or did they just put enough scent in there? And it was, so the truffle popcorn and it was all the rage. And when you go to restaurants at certain times of the year, they have the truffles on the menu and they're in a box. And they, shave you off a little truffle. Well, it's all in here and it's just cute and charming. And for any foodie, I think it's just a wonderful, fun book. You could give them a book with some truffle in it.
And then the last two biographies and memoirs we have is Three Dreamers. This is written by the son of an Italian immigrant mother, but it's told in three parts. It starts with his grandmother, Nonna Maria, who didn't speak a word of English, and she lived off the coast of Naples in this little island called Ischia. I've actually been there, and I unknowingly walked past her house. So that was kind of cool. But she just has all these great stories, and he would be sent over to Ischia every summer, spend time with his cousins and family that were over there. And he just learned some valuable life lessons from her. He thought that she was, this crotchety old woman that was always crabby, but he got to know her so well, and he just formed this great bond with her. And then the second part, he talks about his mother, Raffaella, who came over to America from Italy to marry this man that she'd never met before in an arranged marriage. And he gave the impression that he was a successful businessman. But when she got there, he was a shack. And he was abusive to her. So it's telling her story about how she lived through that and like what she passed on to her children, like lessons, and the abuse that she gave to them, and like what he learned from his mother not to do to his kids. And then the last part is about his wife, who he met her through work and just like what she gave to him in life. She passed away a couple of years before the book was written, so it's also kind of like a tribute to her. So yeah, it'll make you laugh and cry. And I don't cry during books, but this one got me cry. Then the last one is The Boys by Ron Howard and Clint Howard. So I mean, everyone's familiar with Andy Griffith and Happy Days, but not many people are familiar with Clint Howard. I just remember him as Leroy the Sandwich with Andy Griffith. So it's just detailing their childhood as being child actors in Hollywood and what they went through working with super famous actors and actresses and how they're common household names. So it's a great coming of age story of two kids who grew up to be successful producers and actors.
And I just read somewhere that the two brothers did the audio.
Oh.
Yeah, I have some coffee table. So just a beautiful book on Provence. With, So when I have company over the holidays, someplace from the library, I just check out a whole bunch of this kind of books. And then I just have them on my coffee table. And also our older issues of magazines check out, so not the most current, but they have issues of Miranda. So if you have people visiting, you can stick them in the guest room, for them to look at. This is just such a pretty book.
Yeah.
And then, okay, I've never seen the show. I just happened to see this book, but apparently this woman, Lucy Drake, has been on a show called Below Deck for 5 seasons. It's on Bravo, and it's about. Did you see that? It's about. Yeah.
I've seen a lot of people who like all the shows, but
Yeah.
I didn't see that.
So she got a job on a yacht, and then she was like working in the kitchen and all, and then slowly they gave her more jobs, and then her budget to decorate like for a party was like, I don't know, $100,000 or something, and she brought in ice sculptures and tinted the whole yacht and all this stuff, but she got to be really creative with her table speaking. When you put that in, it tries to autocorrect it. She actually has some really fun themes, some really just beautiful ideas. She is in a lot of the pictures. It's just really fun. I love this kind of book personally. Just getting different ideas of other things around your house that you can use to decorate your table. Something, different. So different. It's a list of different parties and different holidays. A cheerful book. I did bring one other new book, British Designers at Home, and it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. So they have a designer, they do a little short interview, and then they have gorgeous pictures of the interior and exterior of their home. We always like to give a little shout out to our local bookstore. They will order any books for you. They have Book of the Month Club or Book of the Every Other Month Club. You can sign people up, family members, and they'll give a curated collection that they'll send out. They have a great newsletter that you can sign up for. You can also sign up for our newsletter. You can also sign up for. We have another service where once a month you sign up for mysteries or different genres. They'll send you a list of like 6 or 7 books. And you can call and put them on hold for you or grab them and put them out there for you to check out. So any books that anyone's reading that they think are particularly fabulous or anything really bad?
That's correct.
That you were disappointed?
Well, that's what I'm doing right now.
I'm listening to it.
It's not a this one.
Well, it's some, I personally am sort of torn because sometimes I feel like I want to put on things that maybe are a little less people would have heard of. But then also like Gentleman in Moscow is my favorite book of the year. So yeah, it's just only good book.
I really like when you said maybe I don't use time books there, but it's really Kristen Hannah, the four winds.
Yeah.
I haven't read anything really about the Dust Bowl and all that either, but I was. And it was a good, fun, easy read.
And it was almost like 2 parts. There was the part of the Dust Bowl, and then there was that whole other part of California.
Yeah, so much fascinating.
Well, I always said that read. Like, it's now it's interesting. I never read. I'm sure there's a lot of yeah, the Nightingale.
That's what the book, The Green Alone.
Yeah.
Alaska. Yeah. So one of my
really interesting book. It's called like Tim Egan and The Worst Hard Times, and it's about the Dust Bowl. It's probably 25 years old. There was dust from our Dust Bowl in like Antarctica, in Europe, all over the world. Like unbelievable shit that they couldn't see because of all the dust from our Dust Bowl.
I can't even comprehend that, and how they would wake up with inches of that.
So their descriptions were mesmerizing.
Yeah.
Just unbelievable. They couldn't eat their food because it was full of dust.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that, I mean, they were sold a bucket of lies, you know, the Homestead Act and come out here and it'll all be great. Should be there. Should be there.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I feel like that's some people's all time favorite.
That makes me cry. That makes you cry. You want to cry?
No, I don't want to cry.
I'm surprised that I was like, go to, or something. Yeah. Well, thanks for being our experiment.
Yeah, thank you. That was great.
Yeah, thank you. Lots of,
Yeah.
indeed.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot. Yeah. Otherwise, writing.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, so sign up for if you like, and, you know, get a chance to get a gift card, but for sure you can earn a book.
Yeah. Thank you.
And if you have